Now, these blast cells, we cannot get them in the peripheral circulation, but we will get the normal blast. Now think about the condition in hemolytic anemia. In hemolytic anemia, there is continuous destruction of RBC. So what the bone marrow will try to do? That will try to compensate. So that will increase the production, and they will also push the younger cells to go outside to compensate for the continuous destruction of RBC. So they will push the normoblast as well as the reticulocytes to go outside. Reticulocytes we cannot identify unless we do special stain, but normoblasts are nucleated RBC. So in hemolytic anemia, we can get nucleated RBC. So nucleus will be present normally, should not be present normally in an RBC, but here we will get nucleated RBC. That is also a feature of hemolytic anemia. And normally the color of the RBC is pink, and it is due to hemoglobin. Whereas the color of the nuclear material and RNA and DNA is blue. And these are mature RBCs do not contain any nuclear material. So there is not a trace of blue within their cytoplasm. They are all red. But immature RBCs, like this normoblast, they contain the nucleus, no problem there. But immature RBCs like reticulocytes, they do not contain nucleus, but they contain RNA. That will also take a blue color. So whenever you see a reticulocyte in normal state, you see it has got double color, both blue as well as pink. So they are known as double chromatia, so they are known as polychromatia or polychromatic cells. So what will be the typical RBC picture of a hemolytic anemia? There will be an anisocytosis and poikilocytosis. There will be either microcytic hypochromic or macrocytic or normocytic normochromic RBC. The number of RBC will be less. There can be special type of poikilocytes. There will be presence of nucleated RBC, and there will be presence of polychromatia. Okay? Now think about WBC. WBC series usually we do not expect any cross abnormality, but as a result of hemorrhage, there can be reactive increase in the WBC count. Okay? Platelet. Platelet again it is usually normal, but hemorrhage can give rise to excess platelet. Otherwise, platelet count in hemolytic anemia should be normal. And another only one thing is left in the peripheral sphere, that is reticulocyte count. Those released immature cells can be counted by using reticulocyte stain. Normally their percentage is 1.5 to 2.5%. That is per 100 RBC, 1.5 to 2.5 number of reticulocytes or immature RBCs will be present. By doing reticulocyte count, if it is more than 2.5, then we call it a reticulocytosis. So there will be reticulocytosis. So again the full-blown picture will be anisocytosis, poikilocytosis, normoblastemia and reticulocytosis. This is the typical picture. Now what will be the next thing? We will do bone marrow. In bone marrow, usually there will be erythroid hyperplasia because there will be much more pressure over the synthesis of the RBC. So major part of the bone marrow is going for synthesis of RBC. So there will be erythroid hyperplasia. And the marrow iron stone is variable. It can be low, it can be normal, or it can be increased in some cases, particularly in thalassemia. Okay, so this is the chain. These are the laboratory investigations that can be seen with hemolytic anemia. And what will be the clinical picture? picture, that things are always present: anemia, jaundice, organomegaly, hemoglobinemia, hemosideриnuria, and hemoglobinuria. These are present. Apart from that, what will be there? What thing will be there in hemolytic anemia? Think about bone marrow. Bone marrow will try to produce more amount of RBC, so there is continuous pressure. Now the major part of adult bone marrow is yellow marrow. That means they will not synthesize RBC, rather they will be reserved. A minor portion is only active, which is known as red marrow. Now in these cases, in these unfortunate patients, the yellow marrow will be replaced by red marrow. So more and more marrow will be active. So what change will happen? Marrow will be present inside the bone, and if you think about your anatomy knowledge, in each bone there is a cortex and there is a medulla. The medullary part is spongy and contains the marrow material, and the cortical part is the thick outside solid part of the bone. Now this medullary part is expanding because the pressure is much more on it. So what it will do? It will cause resorption of the cortex, thinning of the cortex. So if you do a microscopic X-ray, you will see that there will be thinning of the cortex, and what the patient will feel. You give pressure here, patient will complain of pain. This cortical thinning, if it is extensive, then patient will complain that there is sternal tenderness, there is bone pain in different parts of the body. And in X-ray you can also see the cortical thinning. And if it is much more severe, and if it starts from the early childhood, before development of the skeleton to a whole, then the structure of the flat bones can be changed. These maxilla, these mandible, they are the facial bones, their structure can be changed. There can be a typical faces of slanting eyes, of increase in these two prominences, and the eyebrows will be very much prominent. So these type of changes these bony changes can be present there. So these are the extra changes that may occur with the clinical picture. And hepatosplenomegaly, and another important thing is growth retardation. If it starts from very early, if the hemolytic mechanism is active from childhood days, in those cases, the major part of body nutrition will be utilized by the bone marrow itself for synthesis of RBC, because they have to maintain the RBC to somehow at a rate. So the growth will be stunted. So there will be the milestones will be delayed. So the baby will suffer from stunted growth, and anemia will be there. And as there will be organomegaly, so there will be pot belly. And the tone of the musculature will be also less as a result of this nutrition. And there will be intercurrent infections because the nutritional demand for the maintenance of the normal immune system will be hampered. So there will be intercurrent infection. These are the typical picture of a hemolytic anemia, which will start from the very infancy. In adult cases, there will be much less this type of symptoms. But in the adult cases, whenever there will be extra intravascular hemolysis, the special point is that it may precipitate inside the kidney tubule, may block the kidney outcome, and can precipitate acute renal failure. So a severe traumatic injury or a snake venom poisoning can give rise to acute renal failure and complete renal shutdown, that is anemia. That can be also possible. So these are the clinical pictures, and I think this is also clearly understood by you. So no need to just memorize. Why this thing occurs, you must remember that this thing occurs due to this. You remember in this way. It is not that, so there will be kidney damage in this thing, so there will be kidney damage. So don't remember like this. You understand why there will be kidney damage in hemolysis. Because the hemoglobin is coming out and it will be precipitated. And so there will be outflow obstruction, and that will give rise to anemia and this type of abnormalities. Okay? Now we will take some points about thalassemia. Okay? Stop. Now we are coming into a big topic which is known as thalassemia. Thalassemia, it is one of the common congenital hemolytic disorders. And if you think about India or West Bengal, then about 7% of the total population is carrying an abnormal globin gene. Now, 7% is too much. If you think about your class, you are 50. So out of these 50, at least 3 to 4, that is, though it is a mathematical possibility, but at least 3 to 4 are there who are unknowingly carrying a thalassemic gene within their cells. Now, what is thalassemia? Thalassemia is a quantitative disorder of globin chain synthesis. Now, what is globin chain? Hemoglobin. Each hemoglobin molecule has two parts. One is the heme component and another is the globin component. So, okay, think about the chair. In chair, there are four supports, 4 legs of chair. So there are 2 legs are in the front and 2 legs are in the behind. 2 small legs and 2 larger legs. Similarly, in our hemoglobin, there are 2 beta chains which are smaller and 2 alpha globin chains. And think about hemoglobin, about the sitting part of the chair. So there are 4 legs that forms the basic structure, and over that structure the heme will sit, and over that heme there is the iron molecule, and that iron molecule will join with hemoglobin, and now hemoglobin will be carried by that chair to your tissue, and tissue will take that hemoglobin. So in this way everything will go on. Now think about the possibility. Suppose in a chair, your front 2 legs are injured. So that means in my hemoglobin molecule, the beta chains are injured because they are small. Then is the shape of the chair will be maintained? If the sitting place will be comfortable, if the heme, though there is no abnormality in the heme, but if it is stable, no. You are never stable over a chair which has a short leg. So it cannot carry oxygen properly. So there will be some abnormality. And that is the basis of abnormality of globin chain. That is causing the anemia. So decreased globin chain synthesis will give rise to some abnormality in the structure of the hemoglobin, and that will give rise to less oxygen carrying capacity. So ultimately there will be anemia, and that will also give rise to increased cellular destruction. Now little bit genetics. Now the first 2 pairs we are telling about beta globin gene. So there are a pair of beta chain and a pair of alpha chain. So beta chains are synthesized by beta gene. Alpha chains are synthesized by alpha gene. So whenever there will be mutation in the beta gene, then there will be less synthesis of beta chain, and that will result in beta thalassemia. Whenever there will be any mutation in the alpha gene, so there will be less synthesis of the alpha chain, so there will be alpha thalassemia. Now alpha thalassemia is occurring at a much less rate in our country, and also the pathophysiology is slightly more complicated. So I am giving the stress over beta thalassemia. So think about beta thalassemia. in beta thalassemia, we have already discussed that it occurs as a result of mutation in the beta gene. There are 2 beta genes in each cell. Okay, 2 beta genes. So a pair of beta genes. So in each cell, each gene, one gene will come from the father and one gene will come from the mother. That you already know from the very beginning of our life. So one will come from father and one will come from mother. So there are 2 genes. So now we are thinking that the normal beta gene is beta and the abnormal beta gene is beta thal. Is it clear? So these 2 types of genes are possible. Now, whenever you are thinking about genotype, so there will be 2 types of genes. Now, what will be the typical picture? You can choose 2 from these 2. So, what will be the combination? Either the patient can have B. So there are 3 possibilities. Either the person can be beta, so he or she is completely normal, or he or she can be beta T. So both the genes are defective. So very little beta chain or no beta chain will be synthesized by them. So they are the persons who are suffering from thalassemia disease, and they are known as homozygous thalassemia or thalassemia major. And the intermediate zone where there will be one gene is defective and one gene is normal. So beta T, where theoretically 50% or less amount of beta gene are not synthesized. So the rest 50% can at least compensate for the loss. So the patient will usually maintain a normal life, but there will be anemia whenever there will be severe stress like pregnancy. In those cases there can be anemia, or there can be mild compensated anemia like hemoglobin range between 9 to 10 in this way. But they will maintain a normal life and they are thalassemia minor, or they are known as heterozygous thalassemia. So thalassemia major, thalassemia minor, and also there will be the normal population. Now in thalassemia major, the major will show the typical picture of a congenital hemolytic anemia. So what will be the picture? You already know, patient will suffer from severe anemia, severe uncompensated anemia, almost always below 3 to 6 gram per cent. There will be organomegaly. So apart from severe anemia, you all know that there will be also unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia, and the unfortunate babies will suffer from very early part of their life. There will be growth stunting, there will be hepatosplenomegaly, there will be typical skeletal changes, and also there will be bone changes, and there will be bone pain and intercurrent infections. Okay, so you can easily identify them after 6 months of age because their clinical features will be so much. But if they are thalassemia minor, in that cases they will grow normally like you and me. And again I am repeating that including me, you are about 50-51. So even me, I can be also this type of normal appearance. All these things can be also thalassemia. Maximum they have a mild anemia, and unconjugated hyperbilirubinemia can be seen in some cases, and there will be moderate anemia whenever there will be some stress like during pregnancy. So now what is the importance of knowing them? That is the most important part of your study today. Okay? So you can identify definitely the thalassemia majors. easily. But so a thalassemia major cannot transmit a disease, because in most of the cases he will not live a fruitful life to produce children. And even if he can go, he or she will go to that life, then it is already known that he or she is suffering from that disorder. So the appropriate protection should be given. Now the question is, a normal person and a thalassemia carrier, they will appear same. So you cannot differentiate between these two. But what will be the problem? Now see one by one. So, carriers can marry each other. Then what thing will occur? Just by the simple table. There are three types of offsprings possible. Either beta 25% normal, beta T 50% they will be carrier, and beta T 25% they are sufferer. So 1/4 of the pregnancies out of 2 carrier marriage can produce thalassemic children, and that is the only way in the world which can cause thalassemic child. There can be also spontaneous mutations, but their chance is very rare. So that is the only cause. If there will be marriage between a normal and a thalassemic carrier, then in that case 50% baby will be normal and 50% will be carrier. No question of producing any thalassemic child. And you know that a thalassemic child, he or she is destined to die, and you have to maintain his life by giving continuously the different therapy, particularly the transfusion therapy and also iron chelation therapy, which is costly, and the life quality will be also very bad, and the whole family will suffer. So the main aim of our knowing the carrier is to prevent the birth of the babies suffering from thalassemia nature. So how can you know? How can you do this thing? Just you do a simple test which is known as high performance liquid chromatography. By this high performance liquid chromatography will demonstrate that a particular type of hemoglobin, that is known as HbA2, initial one is right. Sorry. So the level of the hemoglobin A2 will be more than 3.4%. There are some gray zones, but basically by these tests, this high performance liquid chromatography, you can identify the carriers. And if you can identify the carriers, you just prevent the marriage between two carriers. A carrier can easily marry a normal person. There will be no harm there. You just prevent the marriage in between two carriers, and then there will be no birth of the thalassemia babies. So in this way, we can prevent this great death. Okay, thank you.